Professor Shermaine Barrett, special invited guests, presenters, faculty, staff. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this, our second day of the 5th International Conference on Education and the Humanities. So as we continue to pursue excellence through knowledge, you are joining me here for day 2. And what are we trying to accomplish on day 2? We continue the exploration of the new frontier. Trends, possibilities, and challenges for education, the humanities, and the social sciences. And this requires that we engage in this conference with optimism and with a consciousness of the roles that we have as practitioners in the field of education. And so I'm particularly excited to know that you're here with us today and that you are looking to be a part of this discourse, to share the knowledge that you are gaining as you research and explore different aspects of our disciplines, varying disciplines. And so, welcome, welcome, welcome. An exciting day awaits you, but it's important, especially in our context and culture, for us to engage the day with a certain level of consciousness of to whom we owe the privilege of being here. So I'm going to invite our own Miss Maribel Law to come and deliver the invocation for day 2.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? Okay, not tired? That's very good. Okay, I'd just like to share the thought for today before I pray. You become a blessing to others by allowing Jesus to work in you and through you. And his life is the best life there is. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for life. I was just speaking with my neighbor, Dr. Dean, and he was saying how short life is. One day you're here and the next you're not. But each time we awaken and see a new day, that is more than reason to give you thanks. And we also give you thanks that we are at our 5th conference. We started out with the first one, and now we're at the 5th one, and it's because of you, and we want to say thank you, Lord. And we know there are many more in store. I pray that as we reach halfway in our conference that you continue to lead out in the proceedings. We pray for traveling mercies for those who are still on their way. We pray for there not to be any technical issues and that today can go smoothly. Be with each presenter, fill them with your peace and help them to know that everything is going to go well. So thank you for all that you have done and all that you're going to do, and may we glorify you in all we say and do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. I want to pause at this time to acknowledge those who have joined us on UTech YouTube. We have quite a number of our graduate students who will be viewing today's plenary session and our concurrent sessions from online. We do also have quite a number of persons who have registered for the conference but are engaging with us virtually, and so we want to acknowledge them. And I want to give you a little bit of information about us in the Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies and some of the things we're capable of doing. So you would have started the conference yesterday and you would have walked into this hall, into this lecture theater, and you'd have seen the decor. It was done in-house by our own teams. And we acknowledge Miss Elaine McLean and her team for that. Thank you so much. I want you also to note the lighting. It was also done in-house from within the Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies, and it would have been Mr. Tullo and his team. And guess what else? Awesome stuff. Self-sufficiency, right? Heading there fully. In-house, our own technical support. Our videographer or cameraman, whether for still photos or video, whatever it is, whether we're zooming, streaming, it is done in-house by our own CAT Productions. So we are a self-sustaining faculty. And as you would have heard Dr. Ivy share yesterday, we take the business of scholarship seriously. And so I really want to acknowledge the faculty for all that it continues to do and for all the different courses it continues to chart in this university. So at this time, I'm going to step aside to allow for you to receive greetings from our Deputy President Acting, Professor Charmaine Barrett, and she will be followed by our Acting Dean, Dr. Harold McDermott. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say all protocols observed, because by the time you name out the list, 1 minute of my time is gone. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to begin by congratulating the Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies, and in particular the conference planning team, for what I describe as pushing ahead to get us to this point. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not in my script, but as I say push ahead, I say many of you might not know that the university is in a very peculiar position coming out of the COVID financially. And so the team had to be astute in how it manages itself and navigate the way to take us here today. So when we started planning for the conference, I was sitting in the office of Dean of the Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies, so I'm quite au fait with what was to happen, is to happen, and was aware that the team had to be very, very careful. But today, it is my pleasure to be able to bring warm greetings in my capacity as the Acting Deputy President. And I extend a very special greetings to our audience. Right now, you sitting before me look small, but the audience is a mix of persons from industry, academia, and elsewhere, and I want to acknowledge you. As the leader of the Academic Affairs Division of the university, I'm happy to note that the University of Technology, Jamaica, is making this significant contribution to the advancement of the country's higher education sector through the staging of this International Conference on Education and Humanities. This is an event that showcases the university and, dare I say, indeed, the faculty as a highly important contributor to the kind of academic discourse that can influence and advance dialogue on this year's theme. And you see it up there from time to time, and I want to just pause to congratulate the designer of the theme something, the graphics, okay? Not the logo, yes, but the graphics of the theme. I think, who is that person? Congratulations, Mr. Leslie. I was saying to the president yesterday, I absolutely love that. And he said, who designed it? I say, I don't know yet, but I'm not going to leave here till I find out. So, okay, Okino and Elaine McLean, I hear. Yes, and Okino put up his hand, so he agrees. So the new frontier, trends, possibilities, and challenges for education, the humanities, and the social sciences, I think was so aptly caught in that graphic. Having looked at the program, I am confident that the dialogue and discourse that will take place throughout the conference will inspire deeper understanding on various topics, which will in turn stimulate further research that will assist in tackling many of the complex trends, possibilities, and challenges that are part of the extensive list of issues affecting our institutional and national development. Over the years, we would note that the conference has grown from strength to strength. Don't be confused by who is sitting in the room. That doesn't show strength, because the strength is in the quality of the discourse and the kinds of topics that we look on. And so this year is no different. The themes indicate, the theme of the conference indicate, and I will use the words of a particular writer to pull it together. The world we live in is undergoing a remarkable transformation, driven by digital transformation and technological advancement. I know that we are all aware that these advancements will be a game changer in the education sector, as they will change the tools we use and reshape the principles of how knowledge is produced, shared, and utilized. This will ultimately shape future policies and practices in higher educational institutions. And as a result of this shaping, institutions will have to respond by developing new ways of teaching, learning, and carrying out education administration. The keynote speaker yesterday did a good job at highlighting how technology is changing the way we consume and use information. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme accords well with the university's ongoing commitment to explore and address contemporary challenges. In this regard, the conference aims to provide a space for the exchange of ideas and cutting-edge research in education, the humanities, and social sciences under a number of sub-themes. But these sub-themes, though different in their title, all speak to the role of education and humanities and social sciences in addressing societal challenges relevant to societal transformation. Cumulatively, the sub-themes emphasize how research and educational practices are shaping the new methodologies and fresh perspectives. And so I commend the focus on leadership and management, as these must evolve to keep changing societal needs. I should have said, these must evolve to meet the changing societal needs and educational policies. I am happy to note the inclusion of the role of language and popular culture in influencing education. This, I believe, points to and acknowledge the substantial impact of culture and language on how the teaching and learning functions. And they equip educators with the tools to be culturally responsive and in readying our students for the world of work. I note further the inclusion of the issues of diversity and mental health. And I believe this will ensure inclusive and supportive learning environments for staff, students, and other stakeholders. Lastly, I acknowledge the intent to explore creative industries within the context of the 21st century, against the background of digital transformation, artificial intelligence, culture, and in our context, crime, employability skills, highlighting the dynamic areas of focus within the FELS. As I close, I take the opportunity to again congratulate Dr. Hope Main, conference chair, and her dynamic conference planning team, the acting dean, heads of school, and the entire faculty of Education and Liberal Studies for once again successfully organizing and executing this conference, the 5th International Conference on Education and the Humanities. I look forward to the continued rich discussion since we started yesterday and innovative ideas that would have already been emerging and that will emerge from the sessions, knowing that our collective inputs will assist in surfacing and confronting the challenges and potentials that the future holds. I hope that the expected outcomes will be achieved and that the event will guide us toward understanding, preparing for, and navigating the new frontiers ahead for the humanities, social sciences, and for education, the humanities, and social sciences. And so once again, I say warm greetings to you all, and together, let us have an excellent conference.
Thank you, Prof. Barrett. Madam Chair, Deputy President Barrett, Acting AVP Ivy, Dr. Main, Conference Chair, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is my signal honor this morning to welcome you to the second day of our 5th International Conference. Our title, as you would have heard, is quite timely. Trends, possibilities, and challenges for education, the humanities, and social science. And I think it is timely because of our national context, but also our international context as far as education is concerned. I think that all of us who are in Jamaica will appreciate that our nation is in an intense dialogue with itself as to how to produce quality education and what ought to be part of that quality education, as we have seen with the Caribbean Examination Council first offering to withdraw subjects from its curriculum, and then this week offering to put them back. The truth is that we are particularly blessed in the FELS because we are the faculty with the greatest academic output in terms of publications. And we don't seem to be cowed by the mantra that says, publish or perish. But that is a mantra that gives heartburn to other faculties, not ours, and we give thanks for that. Someone once asked, what is the difference between a genie and an academic? The answer came, well, one grants wishes and the other wishes for grants. I think Dr. Ivy will appreciate that that is one of the challenges faced, and it's a challenge that we in the FELS are finding creative ways to negotiate. So, our conference this week is engaged in a dual process of reflexivity and reflectiveness. And I say that because any institution that does not take on new ideas is an institution that is bound to perish. So we take on new ideas, some of which we will support and accommodate, others we will resist and hope to change. As we take part in this conference, I feel it is my duty to help those who are new to negotiate what we will call academic speak. And those who are long in conferences, you know, you might be used to this, all right? So whenever a presenter, for example, says, it has been long known, that really means I have not bothered to look up the reference. Or if you hear a presenter say, it is generally believed, take that to mean a couple of other persons have said it before me. I want to, again, thank all the persons who have participated in making this conference a success, a resounding success yesterday, and I anticipate no less today. I want to welcome all who are here in the hall and those who are online, those who have traveled from overseas. We thank you for participating, and I just want to say, please take a little time outside of conference time to savor our lovely island, the sights, the sounds, the tastes. We are proud of the rock, and we hope that you will find it as pleasurable and entertaining as we do. So, finally, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. I commend Dr. Hope and her team for the work done to make this a success. And I want to say to everybody, continue to enjoy a wonderful conference.
Thank you so much, Dr. McDermott, and thank you to Professor Charmaine Barrett for delivering so well the greetings. All right, at this point, I want to invite Dr. Hope Main, who will come to us to introduce our plenary speaker for the day. And Dr. Hope Main is the Associate Vice President for Teaching and Learning Acting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams Shakespeare. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone here. And good morning to those online, all 100 of you. Well, it is my task to introduce Dr. Ivy. Now, drink some water because it's going to be very long. But I'm happy to introduce him. Dr. Ivy has been a science educator and higher education administrator for more than 30 years. He obtained his PhD and MSc in entomology at Louisiana State University, USA, in 1997 and 1991, respectively. Dr. Ivy also holds an MEd in Adult Education Lifelong Learning from Mount St. Vincent University, Halifax, Canada, obtained in 2001. His first degree in agricultural science was awarded by the University of the West Indies in 1989. Dr. Ivy has taught courses at the undergraduate and graduate levels and has led the development of new academic programs, syllabi, and teaching and learning materials. Additionally, he has published many articles in peer-reviewed journals and has authored 18 books, written several technical reports, made presentations at more than 30 conferences locally and overseas, and has been involved in professional consultancies. He is a founding member of the Caribbean Research and Innovation Management Association. His service to the wider community includes being an invited speaker at functions hosted by numerous social and professional organizations, including graduation ceremonies by educational institutions. Dr. Ivy has also served on bodies such as the CXC National Committee, UNESCO, Science and Technology Committee, Council of Community College of Jamaica, Board of Graduate Studies and Research of the Caribbean Maritime University, Graduate School Advisory Committee of Michael University College, the Technical Working Group of the Cannabis Licensing Authority, and as an assessor and member board of the University Council of Jamaica. I'm almost out of breath, Dr. Ivy. But anyway, he is currently an associate professor and Associate Vice President for Graduate Studies, Research, and Entrepreneurship at the University of Technology, Jamaica. His research interests include applied entomology, adult education, and research productivity and impact of higher education institutions. Please welcome him.
Thank you very much, Dr. Main. I didn't mean to have you hyperventilating, but I imagine that after 30 years, one accumulates a number of things. Good morning, colleagues who are here, and colleagues and students who are online. Looking at the time, I think I have maybe an hour and a half or so. I want to start with 3 stories. One of the things that I have come to understand as well is that as you age, you tell stories. All people do that. How did I get to be doing this presentation? As AVP and interacting with the graduate studies and the research coordinators, I flood them with information. Each time I come across something relevant, they are going to get it in an email. So I sent out a particular document, and Dr. Main said, Dr. Ivy, our conference, this might be relevant as a plenary presentation for the conference. And as we say in Jamaica, so comes I'm here doing this presentation on this topic, charting a successful career as a researcher. How do we get this going, please, someone? That's not it. slideshow. Sorry? Yes. This will work automatically. Right. So the presentation. The second story is about myself, a little bit more about myself, which I don't know if you want to hear more. But I want to use this story to illustrate what can happen to someone when you don't have focused planning of your career in terms of exactly what you want to do. So I completed the doctorate in 1997, as is mentioned. And I returned from the USA, and I essentially returned to Case, because that's where I'd been working before I went off to do the doctorate. And for the next succeeding 12 years, from 1997, I went into administrative matters and positions. I became a dean, faculty dean. I went on to be vice president, and I ended up serving for 5 years as the president of Case, up to 2009. And all those years, I did no research because I had segued into administrative matters coming off the doctorate. And out of my doctorate, I had 5 publications coming out of it. But the next 12 years is a drought period as it relates to research because I was in administration. So the point is that one has to be clear at the onset what you really want to do. So I kind of got back on track when I came to UTech in 2010. And even though I wasn't a lecturer per se, I decided that my research activities were important to get back into. The second story concerns someone I know. I don't want to divulge too much. But this individual came off of his doctorate. It was a very active researcher, gung-ho, just churning out publications and doing all kinds of stuff. And then he went into administration. Then he went into administration, and his publications and scholarly output just plummeted. And he tried his hand at another administrative position and was not successful. And I reckon that he's probably in a bit of a twilight zone now, Never Never Land. And I'm thinking to myself that I'm going to reach out to him to get him back on track in terms of, focusing his mind, maybe even, putting some bandages on these wounds and disappointments and get him back on track, because I think he has tremendous potential. And that's one of the things that research management should do. So that's story number 3. Let's get on with the publication here. I have 2 modest objectives for the presentation. I want to animate your thoughts around the notion that there has to be deliberateness concerning being a successful researcher. And the 2 stories I just told you a while ago had some, implications and illustrative of that lack of deliberateness, if you will. So there has to be a systematic and deliberate approach to being a successful researcher. And the second modest objective is that I want to share some strategies as to how can embark on a successful career. Basically, the propositions here, modest as well propositions. Research and scholarship are central to the academic enterprise, as we know. And also that one's career is actually a real asset. Your career is an asset that must be deliberately and proactively managed. And in particular, as it relates to early career researchers, persons just coming off of their doctoral studies or, advanced studies, it's important that they be given guidance to ensure optimal career outcomes. So basically what I'm saying here is that the researcher has to manage themselves. So it's an issue of managing yourself. That is the proposition here that is at the heart of what I'm going to be saying. So what we have here is the outline. I'm going to quickly start out by the core functions of academics, run through quickly the domains of scholarship, and all these things that are here, and then I will start to hit the strategies when I go to from self-assessment and goal setting, building research skills, all the way through maintaining a work-life balance. This is the roadmap for the presentation. This is how I will be navigating it. So then, here at our university, and that is the construct that I've been using, our university. It says here, from Ordinance 9916, this is what is stated in that ordinance, that the university recognizes that staff do not have identical opportunities to engage in the full suite of academic activities or so forth. So they will turn up with different profiles based on, if you're in a particular faculty or in a different academic unit and so forth. Different profiles will turn up. But at the core, teaching, research, and service are the core activities of our university, Ordinance 9916. So then, as it relates to scholarship, I always like to put this slide in my presentations, because I think one of the things that we need to appreciate is that sometimes persons give credence to different kinds of scholarship. There's a kind of hierarchy. And if you're not in discovery scholarship, producing new drugs and new this and new that, people say that, well, oh, what is it that you're doing? Oh, you're over there in the humanities. As a matter of fact, I had an interesting bit of perspective recently, where it was being said from the natural sciences side of the equation that they need equipment and they need all kinds of so and so, because they can't just go and do a survey and tell a story. So it shows you the kind of hierarchical nature of how the different disciplines are perceived. Some are of a lesser breed, and so on and so forth. So the point I'm making here in sharing this slide from Ernest Boyer is that there are different domains of scholarship. And as academics, should appreciate the fact that you can be in either or any one of these domains doing legitimate scholarship. That is essentially the point I'm making by displaying this slide. The next point is a basic, simple one. Who is a researcher? According to the Frascati manual that was put out by the OECD, these are professionals who are engaged in the conception or creation of knowledge, products, processes, and all of these kinds of various things. And they manage the process of getting the research done and the work done. You manage the research project, if you will. The researcher manages the research project to get it from start to finish, well, from conceptualization to finish, reporting and all of those things. And research. Research, the short and definition for research is really systematic inquiry. But the Frascati manual makes a distinction that it is creative work. There's an element of creativity, including knowledge production to expand the stock of available knowledge and also to devise new applications coming from existing knowledge and all of that. So systematic inquiry is really the shorthand definition for research, because it's a process and it's methodical. It's methodical. It's not random what you're actually doing. And why is research important? For all these various reasons. You're generating new knowledge, you're answering questions, and improving products or services. So the research enterprise has purpose to it. It's directed towards a particular end. And when the argument is made about impactful research, and we hear the term impactful research, what are we talking about? Research that leads to positive outcomes. Impacts mean change, the change that occurs as a result of the research being done. That's basically what we mean when we talk about impact. And what we are basically saying here is that impactful research does two things. It increases good things and reduces bad things. That's just it. So increases good things, reduce bad things. You have impact there. And not only that, as it relates to impact, it's really the case that the research must come from out of the halls of academia into the wider society. It is in the wider society that the impacts will be exerted, and that's what we want to see. So we have knowledge outputs from research, journal articles, the conference presentations that we're having here, books and book chapters, and all of these various things, inclusive of improved products, services, processes, methodologies, and so on and so forth. And then there are 4 recognized pathways through which research exerts impact. And these are they. And it is the case that when one is embarking on a piece of research, you should ask yourself this question. Which pathway is this research going to exert its impact? That is the positive change, the positive outcome. Public policy. And I think that's kind of obvious, you know. We hear the argument made about evidence-based policy making. That's where research is undergirding the policy formulation process. And quality of life, persons is enhanced by quality of life. You may have new medicines, new pharmaceuticals, new food additives, all kinds of things. Enhanced processes of things, people's quality of life is enhanced. When we started out at the turn of the century, life expectancy was way down here. In the Western world, life expectancy is now 74 years. Basically, you know, persons used to be at the ripe old age of 40 sometimes back. So quality of life is enhanced. So too is human capital development. By persons being trained up to the doctoral level, taking advanced degrees all the way from undergraduate to advanced degrees, human capital is enhanced. As a matter of fact, it has been said that one of the ways by which institutions, HEIs, higher education institutions, transfer technology to the wider society is actually through the graduates. Just the number of graduates, because they come in and they leave with enhanced skills. Out into the wider society they go. And the next pathway for research impact is when businesses are spun off from research results. And we know many companies that have come out of research having been done. Our own Dr. Lawrence Williams, as his guinea hen formulation, I see them in the pharmacies. Dr. Henry Lowe, as his Medicandra and so forth, and then we had Manley West and Lockhart with their Canasol and so on and so forth. Many other companies are spun off of research results. And this is how, these are the 4 pathways that UK councils, Research Councils UK, they have articulated that these are the 4 main pathways through which research exerts impact. Now, research management is a thing, you know. And when I read this over and described it as a thing, I said that I should have used a better form of word. And what I should actually say on reflection is that research management is a profession. It's a professional area, research management. And what the ACU says in terms of a definition is that research management is any activity that occurs at the institutional level that seeks to support and add value to the research of staff members without itself being part of the research process. So here at our university, the SJSR is UTEC's Research Management Office. And your humble servant here is our university's research manager, our chief research manager. There are other research managers who are the graduate studies coordinators in the 8 academic units. So they're the local level research manager. The SJSR is the university's research management office and my good self. So research management comprises a suite of supporting activities for the research enterprise. Research management then functions. They help researchers, especially early career researchers, to manage their careers. And also that example that I cited about a colleague who needs to be refocused. It's really a question of the research management function, recognizing that that exists and to bring the person into the fold. So there are a suite of research management activities that take place, and I don't want to go through all of these, just to say that before pre-award and post-award. And these are some of the various things that research managers actually do. And it is often the case, when persons started to say research management was a profession, persons said, give them the kind of the side eye, give them the side eye. Oh, this is just another administrative layer we not come with, But research management actually do a suite of supportive activities. And then research management skills go with the functions. All of these various things, research managers have to be, their capacity has to be built and be there for the functions that they have to do. One of the questions in the profession is whether research managers need research experience. So it's a question that is debated in the profession. Can you be a research manager if you hadn't been a researcher? It's for debate. And the other thing that is observed in the profession is that there isn't really a school for research managers, and it is usually academics that gets promoted up to being a research manager. So chances are most likely persons would have done some research before they become a research manager. But that's not what this presentation is about. This is just the Michael Holding long run-up. So now we go to the strategies for charting a successful research career. And here the propositions are really to say, okay, I'm giving you some things to think about as it relates to your research career. And the point, again, to reiterate, is the question of deliberateness and proactiveness as it relates to one's research career. First, we start off with self-assessment and goal setting. And I'm reminded of Dr. Merritt Henry, product of FELS, who is a career specialist, career planning specialist. And what we find in Jamaica is that career planning for students is not really a very systematic process. And what Merritt Henry did was her research in that area, did her dissertation, and produced a book on the subject matter. So the first thing that needs to happen here for a researcher, identify your strengths. And it has been said in the new age, speak, that there are no such things as weaknesses. There are opportunities for improvement. So identify the strengths and the areas that need work for capacity building. Think about that in a deliberate way. And clarify for yourselves your personal and the professional interests. What is it that you want to do? I shared my story because I did not go through this process at all. I came back, and the president of CASE at the time said, oh, there's an opening for a dean for the Faculty of Science. You just did a science degree, take it. And I did not plan what was going to be the arc of my career coming off the doctoral work. Goal setting, and here's the critical question to begin with, which I did not ask myself. Where do you want to be in the next 5, 10, or 15 years? Ask yourselves that question and answer it. Answer it. I have had interactions with colleagues, and I say to them, just take the next couple of years, put in the work, then apply for a promotion, that type of thing. Say, put in the work. So the point is being deliberate about it. Where do you want to be in the next 5, 10, or 15 years from now? And then chart the path from that answer to the question. Know when to say no and know when to say yes. Lots of committees to serve on, this to do, that to do, and the other. Ask yourself a question. How does this advance my career or not? And say no or yes to the particular situation. You know, so that's something that needs to happen. Set yourself some short-term or long-term goals. I have goals as it relates to research and scholarly output, and they are actually written down. I say to myself, each year, I must have at least one publication each year, at least one. And I work towards having at least one. Because, you know, one is, you're busy with a lot of things. But if you get one versus zero, then you're making progress in that direction. Also, grasp opportunities. Set goals and grasp opportunities. So I said yes to Dr. Main. It was an instance when a yes was in order. Because what it does is that here we are in the middle of the year, and I have now one conference under my belt because I said yes. And I have a publication in the works. So I think I had one came out in December 2023. And we have one, sorry? Yes, right. And I have another one ready for sending off to a journal. So, you know, when you are clear about the goals, then you are able to deliberately take particular actions. Align the goals now with your values and professional aspirations. Want to be an associate professor? Want to be a professor? Do the actions that are aligned with that ambition that you have. So you have the ambition, and it becomes what you focus on in terms of the trajectory that you are going on and the things that you do. There is really no substitute for focused, well-planned, and efficient hard work. You have to put in the work, but you have to make sure that it is done in a sensible fashion. Build your research skills. One of the things that persons need to appreciate, getting a doctorate is the beginning, it's not the end. You have not arrived when you have gotten your doctorate. You have not arrived. You're an apprentice as it relates to research, actually. Because a doctorate is really a research training degree. And when you have achieved your doctorate, it means that you have undergone the 3 years or however many years of research training. You now need to come and do research, practice. That's why in the US they have postdocs, you know, where you are a postdoc before you actually become an assistant professor. Because that's your apprenticeship period to say that you are putting into practice what has been learned. Because the thing is this, what it said about the research skills, and that's why sometimes persons will do a PhD in a particular area, but they will do research in other areas not directly related to exactly what they did for their PhD. Why is that? Because they are simply applying the research skills. It is the research skills. It's not the topic that you studied. It's the research skills. So appreciate that. The PhD is just the beginning. The beginning. Let's appreciate that. Now, there are a suite of, so that's the educational background, part of it. Then there are the technical skills that are needed now, that are necessary. Research methodologies, master statistical analysis and data tools and all of those type of things. And all these technologies that we are now hearing exist. Master them and put them to strategic use as it relates to your career advancement. Get this, you know, in the R-Trust NTA, they have this construct, upskilling, constantly upskill yourself so that you are equipped and you are capacitated to better able to advance your career. And then there are the soft skills, the communication and the presentation skills. And you know, it is remarkable as it relates to my own self. I'm an introvert. And I remember growing up as a quiet, we probably say a shy boy. I could say that. Yes. And I remember when I was graduating from secondary school, I was given a lesson to read on the program. And I thought I was going to die. it was a death sentence. The weeks leading up to, and all that. But you see, with time and with practice, you just have to hone the skills because these are necessary skills. It has been said that if you have brilliant ideas and can't express them, might as well you don't have them. They really don't exist. It's like the person who can read but don't read is no different from the illiterate person. So the skills development is critical, and these particular suite of skills, and then the network and collaboration. I'll come back to collaboration in a bit. But the networking. Here some people say that they don't like small talk, and they can't go at the margin of a conference and hobnob over the hors d'oeuvres and the refreshment and all of those type of things. But, you know, you have to develop these kind of skills, and they will come with time. They will come with time. You just have to be deliberate about it. Remember now, we're talking about deliberateness and proactivity. And, of course, time management, managing one's time. You know, everybody has 24 hours in a day. Everybody has the 24 hours in a day. It's how it's used, how they are used, basically. So these are skills and things to focus on, to appreciate, where you're going to say the yes and where you're going to say the no. In my own case, for example, I have my tabs open on my computer all the time. So now, some key research competencies. Some were mentioned earlier, but I just want to reiterate some of them. You have to be able to put a problem in context and define the problem in order to solve it. Contextualize the problem. That's where, your literature review comes in, when you're putting a problem in context. What has others done before? What is the literature saying? Where are the gaps? What's outstanding in this area that represents a research opportunity? Those kind of things are things that we need to develop. My daughter is doing her doctorate, poor thing. She's supposed to finish next month or something like that. And she calls, and we have to bear her up because it has been quite a while now, and so forth. But then where am I? Problem contextualization and so forth. So she says, when I just started, it would take me weeks to understand a paper. If I read a paper, it would take me quite some while to get the gist of it. But now, in an hour, I read a paper and I get the essence of what that paper is about, and I'm on my way without having to devote so much time in it. So you have to spend time in doing the thing and so forth. Get to appreciate different methodologies for a particular situation. When is a qualitative study appropriate for a particular scenario? When is quantitative better? When is mixed method better? And all of those kinds of things you have to get to understand. And to analyze your results appropriately using the appropriate statistical analysis, statistical tools, statistical tests, and so on and so forth. And draw appropriate conclusions from the results. The conclusions must be directly related to the results and all that. And then a critical skill is the writing skills. Write up and publish the results. I said yesterday briefly that over the weekend I was reading a study on STEM from Georgetown University's Workforce Development Center. And they said that STEM does not include the social sciences, and they dismissed the social sciences. But have you ever seen some science majors who can write 2 sentences to save their lives? And so on. So it just goes without saying that the all-roundedness, as it relates to the different contributions to a person's profile from the different disciplines, all of that's important. So I will also say now, and may as well I say it now, is that writing a paper for publication and even making a presentation is storytelling. It's really storytelling. It's just that scientific storytelling takes a particular language and a certain format, but it's storytelling, and get to appreciate that. So if you think it's difficult to write a paper, just say to yourself that I am telling somebody what I did and what I found out and what they mean. And you write it up in that, with that formula, so to speak. The next strategy, develop your research agenda. Have a research agenda. I've said to some of my colleagues here that I see what they say on the streets, wobbling. And I'm saying, do you want to be the guru of this thing? Do you want to be the go-to person? Try to be the go-to person for this thing. If something has happened in Jamaica and the media wants somebody to come and speak about it, be that person. And we have many such persons here, and we have persons with the potential who are not there yet. So define a niche area and for your research focus so that you become the go-to person for that particular area, especially if it's derived from, what you studied. That is something that is useful, it's kind of like a natural segue into that groove. Keep up with your field. Keep up with the trends and developments in your field. I've not practiced entomology for quite some time now. If I were to go back into the trenches, I would have to go and read up to find out where pest management has reached now as it relates to the technologies and those kind of things, as it has been a few years. So one would need to get back there. Look at government policies and societal pain points. What are the things that make the news and the bite of the week from time to time out there in terms of what people want to have addressed? We're now having drought issues and lack of water in different areas in Jamaica and so forth. How can we deal with that situation? Can people live off the new minimum wage that has been announced, that has come into effect June 1st, I believe, $15,000 for 40-hour week? Can people live and purchase a healthy meal or healthy living from that type of income level? We could do research on those kinds of things and so forth. What has happened to those communities that previously depended on sugar cane, the sugar-dependent communities? How are they faring now? And so on and so forth. Those kind of things. What has government articulated as its priority areas for agriculture, for the health sector, for the creative industries, for the you name it, for the whatever? What are government policies and priority areas and so forth? Those are research options and possibilities. Literature review. Stay updated, like I just mentioned, and develop your proficiency in the use of tools for effective literature reviews. And here, work with the librarians. The librarians are a skilled set of professionals as it relates to information management. Work with your librarians as well as it relates to what tools are available for literature review. Get into being very proficient at formulating research questions. Last night, I was reviewing a proposal that was submitted, and I had to do track changes and rewrite the research questions. They were not clear, they were not focused, and they were not hitting the direct points as it relates to what they intended to do. And they were, I think they call it in education a little bit thrusting, because they were going ahead of themselves. So for example, we're looking at demographic factors that were contributing to a particular situation. And the researcher preempted themselves by saying that they were going to look at age, education, marital status, and all of those various things. You don't know if those are the things that are impacting the particular phenomenon. So you're going to say that you're going to investigate what demographic factors are driving it. But you don't name the demographic factors in the research question because you don't know them yet, that they are the ones. So one has to be very proficient in formulating research questions that are clear and very impactful and are hitting the right notes and ensuring the feasibility and the relevance of the questions to be done. So for example, you can't write a research question to say that this research project is going to end world poverty. No such single project can do that. It's basically contributing to an understanding of the phenomenon, and so, I mean, those kind of things. So these are considerations to have in mind. Networking and collaboration is another strategy that you have to guide your career as a researcher. Don't be an island. It has been said in the literature that there are some disciplines that lend themselves to independent work. And they say that you find that in the social sciences and so on, and sociology and so forth, a single researcher is doing something and so forth. But what you also see is that I remember Professor Morrison saying that teamwork comes naturally to him because in the practice of medicine, it's a team of persons who is going to open somebody's skull or your chest or abdominal cavity. It's a team of persons, the surgeon, the anesthetist, the nurse, the what have you, and so forth. So, but as it is now, even the major funding agencies, they are requiring collaboration. They are not taking proposals from a single researcher. In fact, they go as far as to say that the researchers must come from, one set must come from Africa, the Caribbean, and Europe. That's how the EU sometimes configures its requirement for proposals. Because the essential point here in this collaboration thing is that multidisciplinarity is critical to solve some of these big, complex problems that are out there now. No single discipline can attack climate change, for example. So collaboration is critical in that regard. And so one needs to develop and be open to collaboration and networking. And then you see I put 3 asterisks at mentorship. This is critical. And I use a biblical word here, that the benefits of mentorship are legion. And I think I remember from Sunday school, somebody might have been possessed with demons, and they said that they were legion. Yes, I remember. Identify a mentor. Identify a mentor. This is usually going to be, in terms of profile, a seasoned and a successful researcher who is amenable to assisting and coaching someone who is just coming up. Some persons can be irascible and don't want to be bothered, so that's not the kind you're looking for. You're looking for someone who is well accomplished and at the same time is willing to assist the next generation of researchers coming up in terms of saying that, look, I will eventually be in a rocking chair or hammock or something or 6 feet there under. So the next generation of researchers need to be assisted and so forth. So mentorship is critical. In fact, in the business field, they talk about this all the time. When people are making, business model competitions, they tell you, the gurus of business tell you, get a mentor, get a mentor. It's the same principle. Get a mentor as it relates to moving with your career so that you can be guided. And what we are seeking to do here with, mentioning research groups is to have a mix of skills in the research group in terms of more experienced researchers, early career researchers, so that co-learning can take place. Collaborations, build partnerships with your peers and also other institutions. It has been said that one of the things that makes you Homo sapiens, humans, successful as a species is that they actually share brains by virtue of collaboration. So this conference is a brain sharing thing and all those other kinds of ways by which brains are shared. So collaboration is essentially sharing of brains, sharing of ideas. So that is the essence of it, basically. It is something that over the evolutionary arc of humans, sharing of brains has contributed to their success. Collaborative projects and research teams and groups. One of the things that we have, one of the strategies that the SJSRE has been implementing in a very active and deliberate way is the formation of research groups. I think we have gone over 10 now and counting research groups in the different academic units. And we say, what is the difference between a research team and a research group? Our own definition is that a research team is a set of persons working on a particular research project. That's going to end, and that's the end of that. team. But a research group has more permanence and is in a defined area and will have life after, they will have successive projects in that defined area, successive projects, and they have a degree of permanence. Two to three or more persons working in that way. Professional associations and conferences are critical. So join relevant professional associations aligned with your profession. It sounds simple, but it is critical to do. That's how you're going to be continuously tethered to the profession, by being part of the professional groupings. That's where the new thinking, that's where the ideas sharing will occur, and so forth. And of course, there are the conferences. And I'm thinking to myself that persons should, look at this conference that FELS has hosted over the years and is hosting today, and say to themselves, I must make a presentation at this conference. Why? Because when I go to my head of school or my dean, they say, boy, the budget is tight, I can't send you go to Timbuktu, or I can't send you wherever, whatever. This conference don't have those considerations. It's right here. I say, well, try use your book grant now and so on. And, well, book grant has been exhausted and all that. It is right here. So you grasp the opportunities when they drop right in your laps. Grasp the opportunities. Here's one that we have here. So all the persons in FELS who have not done a conference and will not have one turning up on their appraisals or whatever and so on, what's going to be the excuse? I mean, that's really a blunt question to put, Attend and present. Networking with experts and peers, and go on the relevant platforms that are there now. Heard Prof. Barrett mentioning to Dr. Jawala yesterday that she seemed active on LinkedIn. So you have LinkedIn, you have ResearchGate, you have others. All kinds of these networks are there. Be a part of them. You notice ResearchGate is almost behaving like Facebook. As soon as somebody reads it, oh, you have had a read. Oh, you have had a citation. Yeah, they're behaving like that. So these networks are very important to be part of them, so that you go in. Google Scholar will tell you how many citations your particular papers have had and so forth. I recently reviewed a paper for a journal, and they tell me that, oh, do you want to be listed in Web of Science, to be recognized as a reviewer and those type of things. So there's a deliberateness to what you're doing. It's not random. You're not being carried by the tide. Wherever it carry you is there, so you end up. Be deliberate. The other points I want to make here, securing funding and resources. Now, grant writing is a basic skill these days. It's a basic skill to be developed and honed. And I find there is apprehension and there is trepidation concerning the writing of grants or proposals. Write the thing. Just write the first set. Just keep doing it, and the better you'll get. It is said that, when a person makes the first set of pancakes, they tend to be lumpy. Your first set of pancakes are likely to be lumpy, but then you become an expert at pancake making afterwards and so forth. So, identify where money is. It says that money makes the mayor runs, but it also makes research possible. And internal funding, and it just so happens that the Research Development Fund has money at this point in time. Our university writ large has challenges in that regard, but the Research Development Fund is it's wire fenced off. It's fenced off. It's not money that can go to light bill or any other things, because it is a special grant from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. And we have upwards of $60 million in the Research Development Fund waiting for proposals. So it's not a money thing, it is a getting of proposals thing. We in the SGSRE are sitting down waiting for proposals. And like I said, identify the research areas, the questions to be answered, the pain points in the society, And what we did more than 5 years ago, actually, when I just got here in the SJSRE, they had the application form, and looking at how the EU and the USAID does their things, I initiated the review of the RDF application forms to put guide notes at the different sections to say, this is what you should do in this section. These are the things we're looking for in the different sections. So it's not difficult for an early stage person to actually complete an application form. Give it your best shot based on the guide notes that are in the different sections of the application form and submit it. The president asked me, what is your rejection rate for RDF applications? And I tell him there's none, because we work with every applications to get them up to the stage where they can be approved. So we will review them and give feedback and say, do this in this section, improve this in this, add this to this section, do this here, so do this here, so. And we work over a couple of weeks and so on with applicants until the project is ready for approval. So we don't reject applications there. We don't reject them, except they are off the reservation, as they say. What institutional support exists? Leverage, well, start out by identifying, leverage, and use the institutional supports that are available. Labs, libraries, I mentioned the librarians. The SJSRE is the Research Management Office. Your first call, though, I am willing to talk to people. Come in and have a discussion. But appreciate, though, that your first point of contact with research interests or discussions is your coordinator, graduate studies and research coordinator of your respective academic units. And I'm assuming that in FELS you know who that person is. Who's the FELS coordinator? Dr. Peter, who is the coordinator for FELS? Who did she succeed? Okay. Do you have a gift for Dr. Peter? So the research coordinator is the first line of contact there. And so next thing, understand and navigate administrative processes. You know, bureaucracies are like democracies. They say that the problem with democracy is that you really can't find a better substitute. It's kind of like the same thing with bureaucracies. What would you use to replace bureaucracies? Kind of like chaos, and everything goes. So there are necessary bureaucratic processes. And what I find in many instances is that persons go down a rabbit hole because they didn't ask questions at the onset. And they find themselves in a rabbit hole, and it sucks up a lot of time trying to correct or bring out a mop to mop up all the water that has been spilled. So you understand and appreciate administrative processes that exist. You know, they exist for a particular reason. So for example, if we tell you that we have to do something a particular way in the SJSRE, it's because we're audited. The internal audit unit is going to come in periodically and audit the processes and so forth. So everything has to be able to stand the light of day and all of that. Industry and government partnerships are critical as well. Collaborate with industry for applied research in your area. Reach out to the different persons in industry. Call them up. Arrange for a visit. Go and have a conversation. Send them an email. You name it. Those kinds of things. Then now, if there are particular government programs and grants, get onto them. If the government says that, look, we are putting out grants for A, B, C, and D, grab onto those. One of the things that I've written about, Professor Oliver and myself and Martin Henry have done some of those type of things, is that what we don't have in Jamaica is a proper national funding agency such as the NSF in the US or the National Science Foundation and the National Institute of Health, I should say, and the National Science Foundation. In South Africa, that has just gone through the throes of their election, they do have a research development foundation where persons can apply to the government. They set out their priority areas and you apply for competitive grants. We have argued in the SGSRE, as I'm saying, that what we have here called the NCST, the National Commission on Science and Technology, should be repurposed to be the national grant-giving agency. It doesn't do that. It actually says that it is going to try to get philanthropic monies to fund what it does, rather than the government putting up X number of dollars into the National Commission for Science and Technology and say that the different HEIs apply for these monies in a competitive way and the best proposal gets funded and so forth. We don't have that. But from time to time, they do make announcements. I know, for example, in health, Minister Tufton will come out and say that these are the different areas that they're focusing on. And so I'm suggesting to you that as part of your career, and also, well, I mean, take FELS now. There's so many issues in the education sector. There cannot be a shortage of questions or issues to be looked at in education. What's behind all of that school violence and this and that? How has COVID affected the psychological aspect of students? Is that related to their behavior and all of that? What's going on there and so forth? CXC approached us a few years ago with this question. We are loaded with data at CXC, they say. We want some researchers to come and mine that data, analyze it and to look for trends and whatever and all of those type of things and so forth. So there's no shortage of research possibilities and the questions, and government and industry represents tremendous sources of issues to be looked into. Moving on to another aspect of the strategies, which is now the matter of the publishing and disseminating research. Research is not finished until published. When you have that big, thick, black dissertation finished, you used to have a professor at LSU. When the graduate students took their draft dissertation to him, this is what the man did. He weighed it in his hand. See how much weight it carry. But the thing is, and so the point I'm trying to make is that that big, thick, heavy book is not the end of the research. It is when it is published that then we now going into the right, well, when the process is complete, because you have gone to publication, meaning that you have put the knowledge into the existing pool of knowledge that's out there. So what it does is that it adds the new information to the body of existing knowledge, expanding it. That's why you hear they talk about, the doctoral degree, expand the boundaries of knowledge, the originality and the expansion of the boundaries of knowledge. So that's why publication is critical. And in our case, we have our own journal right here at our university. So that's how you publish. Publication makes the information available to other researchers, businesses, government, for use. For use. We talk about research productivity, and we talk about research influence. Productivity is really the numbers. Count them up. Influence is the number of citations. How many other persons are interacting with the work? The citations tell you that. You could have the numbers high up here and 0 citation. So nobody is interacting with it. So that's the benefit of citations. So knowledge has no value unless it is shared. I have a whole heap of theses and dissertations in my office. I'm running out of space. I have to start receiving them digitally now. Writing is a form of storytelling, as I mentioned earlier. So a well-written paper is actually telling a story, but it does so in a particular format and uses a scientific language. So we don't, Dr. McDermott, we recently consulted you about the first person singular and the third person plural and all them kind of things. So you're not supposed to see we and so on in there, so the scientific language that the researcher is a third person you're writing in, and, those kind of things. So it's a critical aspect of your career to be able to do. So it's part of the skill development that you need, and it's part of the strategy. If you have done a piece of research, don't leave it unpublished. In the scientific world, that piece of research, unpublished research, has not been done. What can you publish? All kinds of things. All kinds of things are publishable. So if you're going to have this part of your career developed and pursued in a systematic way, understand that these are the different kinds of publication products that are possible. You can start from papers derived from your own dissertations, get them published. Don't put the big book on the library shelf and leave it there. What about those that you have supervised? And this is where I have become like a bit of a stuck record here. Every opportunity that I get, I say, I have 250 bound theses and dissertations in the office, and less than 10 papers have come from them. Those are wasted opportunities for the staff members who supervise those students. You have wasted that opportunity to get a publication co-authored by yourself and the student. That's why I'm pleased to see Dr. Walder over there, having done her doctorate here, has proceeded to get the publication done with her co-authored supervisor, Professor Barrett. That's how it should be routinely. That's just how it should be. It's not something that you need to speak to. That's how it should be. And I'm not stopping with this beating of this drum until I get more publications in a routine fashion out of the supervised student work at graduate level. And then there are the conference presentations. And I made mention of it yesterday, that these conference presentations, the 41, I thought about it last night. And I said to myself, if we get 50%, if we get 50%, that's progress. If we get 50% of the presentations done here, fleshed out as papers and put into the special issue of JAST, it's a good thing. 100% is better. But we can live with 50%, for this time around. And then at the 6th conference, we up it and so on. Yeah. Papers derived from other scholarly activities that you do, just as a section for commentaries. And we're inviting commentaries from professionals and experts in particular areas to give perspective on the subject so that readers can get enlightenment about them and so forth. And also critical reflection on particular things and so forth. Because we believe in JAST, it's the whole domain, all the domains of scholarship. We are interested in them and we will take them on board. The features of publishable scholarship: original, of course, novel, interesting and useful, things that will catch readers' attention. As a matter of fact, they say that the title of a paper is the banner advertisement of the paper. It's a banner. So, original. I see them have these back in the day when they had, what they call them, pressure cookers. They made a whole heap of noise like JOS buses and carrying on. Now they have all these fancy digital ones. They make any sounds. And then we have now air fryers and all of those things. Original, novel, interesting, new. These are things that are coming out of research findings. And of course, if you notice the color pattern of that black and white calf, yes, it's interesting to look at. It's different. It will catch your attention because it is odd. It will probably also catch that. I've been looking at videos of lions and them things and Serengeti. I don't know why the algorithm's putting those in my news feed, because I do look at them. But the point I'm trying to make here is that when you stand out like that, you'll be easily seen by a predator. I suppose that's why they say don't stone green mangoes. Where to publish? Where to publish? Be familiar with journals in your discipline. I remember Martin Henry saying that all of those journals that you used in your dissertation and are listed right in your references and bibliography thing in there, right at the back of it. Those are the journals in your field. And those are the journals that when you now start to do your research, that's where you start in terms of identifying where to publish, because they are in the discipline that you studied, and they are likely to be, for academic purposes and for your work to have been accepted. They will be the acceptable journals. But most persons know, or ought to know, what are the flagship journals in your field. What are the flagship journals in the different disciplines? And in education, you should know what are the flagship journals. So be familiar with them. Journals of professional bodies. Many professional bodies, I should say, many professional bodies, they have journals. The IEEE, as a case in point. The West Indian Journal of Medicine, the Faculty of Education at University next door, they have a journal from that faculty and so forth. And many academic institutions have journals, such as ourselves. We have our international peer-reviewed journal here. And when I say here, Google is your friend, I thought I needed to clarify it. I didn't mean Google as a source of information per se, but where you can find the names of journals, not that you go and publish on Google or what have you and so forth. So just be clear that if you're looking for a journal in a particular field, you can just search for it. What's the top journal in this field? What's the reputable journal in this area? And you get them up. And of course, look out for calls. Look out for calls from journals, whether they're the regular issues or special issues. And avoid predatory journals. These journals are money-making things, and they will publish your paper in a week or shorter than that. And some other, there are red flags as it relates to predatory journals. I should back up a little bit and talk about institutional resources. On an ongoing basis, the SJSRE, as a research management office, hosts a series of presentations. And I'm usually disappointed at the numbers, having regard to the fact that we have close to 500 academic staff. When I see 30 persons on the Zoom, or 50 persons or so, when we have 70, we think we have a good number, and so forth. There's an expectation that more persons would really take advantage of those presentations in terms of what's being presented. And I'm suggesting to you that as part of your career, make that something that you take advantage of. There are institutional resources of a form. Because I'm saying that to say that we have had a presentation maybe over a year now, or more, on predatory journals. And we are seeing some issues, some questions arising regarding journals and the quality of journals in which some publications are being made by staff members and so forth. So that is something that you need to be mindful of. You know that in other institutions, they specify the kinds of journals and the particular impact factors that they will recognize for promotional purposes. We don't actually have that here, but that happens in some other institutions. So it's an important consideration. Don't just rush to publish because somebody tells you that it can come out in a week's time. Look at the longer term implications of the quality of the journal, what it means for your career. Then I mentioned calls. We have a call open now for JAST. It ends the 30th of this month. Call is open for JAST. So bear that in mind, June 30. And the submissions are done on Scholastica. We have migrated to that online platform to make things a little bit more efficient. Volume 16, issue 1 of JAST itself will also be published this month. So we're moving along in that path. Get an understanding of the publication process. Because remember now we have come down to the back end. You have done the work, you are publishing and so forth. You have to understand the publication process. Understand what happens when you submit a paper or prepare a paper for submission. The guidelines are the Bible. Submit, prepare the paper according to the guidelines that the journal has published on its website and their instructions to authors. The scope of the journal will tell you what kinds of works it publishes. So you don't put something way off in a journal that they don't consider those kinds of papers. So waste of time and effort and everything. And then they have specific requirements, whether it is APA 7 or the latest edition of APA, or if it is going to be the Chicago Manual of Style or whatever, they will specify, and then you follow. And nowadays, as Dr. Jawala told us yesterday, anything that you want to know is available online. Just seek out the information. I was reading this morning that, we have a bit of a dichotomy. We are in a sea of information, and at the same time, we're having kind of like information deficits. We used to hear in agriculture that you have a thing called physiological drought, where a plant could actually be sitting in water and not taking up the water because all the root hairs have been flooded with the water that it is sitting in. So it can't take up the water. So it will die just as if it wasn't getting any water. So there's a deluge of information now. So as Dr. Jawala said, it was a strategic use. It is the strategic use of the information for your benefit, for career enhancement. And then the whole peer review process. Typically, there are 3 decisions that you get from a journal. They will accept it, they will tell you to revise and resubmit, or they will reject it out of hand. Most papers get a revise and resubmit. And I will tell you now quickly about the peer review process. A jury of your peers. The peer review process is basically where experts in the field review the work for its validity, its scientific merit, and its utility and suitability to enter into the pool of existing knowledge without contaminating it. So they are gatekeepers, and they are experts in the field. It's a quality assurance mechanism, basically. And then, of course, there's a double-blind peer review, which is the preferred method. Double-blind, meaning that the journal strips the identifying information of the author. So the author doesn't know the peer reviewer, and the peer reviewer doesn't know the author. Double-blind. 2 of them don't know whose paper, whatever you have a view. So that's what double-blind peer review means. So an appreciation and an understanding of the process is important as an academic and as part of your career. This is knowledge that you need to acquire and understand as you navigate your way through the landscape. There are other dissemination methods, conferences and seminars, of course, beyond the publication. Because, for example, if you have come up with something new and you go to a conference and present it, it is being regarded as published. So if you now go to JIPOT for patenting purposes, they will say it is in the public domain already because it was previously published at a conference. So conference presentations are regarded as a form of publication. So the point I'm making here is that the other dissemination methods that are mentioned here, that's the context there. And then there's social media and academic platforms. ResearchGate is a popular one and so forth. And people are putting their things on LinkedIn now and all of that and so forth. Other career advancement and opportunities. What do you want? Do you want an academic position? Well, you are in academia, but since I've been here, I've seen so many persons who have exited UTech. Where have they gone? Was that part of their planned career trajectory? So the point is, do you want to get tenure in the academy, or do you want to go into industry, or are there other alternative career paths? The point is, in the answer to the question, where do I want to be in the next 5, 10, or 15 years, these are the pathways that can come as possibilities in terms of where you see yourself. Here at UTech, our university, persons get tenure, an undated contract, which is essentially tenure, academics, after 6 years. After 6 years, and satisfactory performance, such as it is, you get an undated contract that's tenure. Of course, in the North American system, you start out as an assistant professor. And if, you know, I remember being at LSU and this young professor came there, assistant professor, and he didn't make the cut after 3 years. So he wasn't going to get tenure to be an associate professor and move up the ranks. So he had to leave, and they arranged a little party for him or whatever. Everybody turned up, and he never showed up. Because it's a disappointing thing. It's a disappointing thing. Nobody turned up to no farewell party, man. No get tenure, has to go. Because during that period, you're expected to get a grant. You're expected to do research. You're expected to show output, productivity. You're expected to show output. That's why I mentioned earlier, you know, that the new PhD is an apprentice. And that's why in the US system, you're hired first as an assistant professor to show what you are worth, what you are made of, yes. And then you can go up the ranks. What do you want? What do you want? And these are the scenarios for consideration. In terms of planning your career arc in a deliberate way, so that it's not, as we say in Jamaica, using 2 languages here, as you can see, you come back up. Answer. What's going on here? Frozen. I'm almost there. Okay. This is critical. Wellness. Maintaining work-life balance. You know, oftentimes, persons like me will come and we'll make a presentation. And we will say, do this, do this, do this. These are the things you need to do. And you never look at the personal side of things, the human side of the equation. But here, it is important in doing what we are doing. You're not a robot or a bot. You're a person. And so these considerations have to come into play. Going back to my daughter now. She's really under the gun, going down to the finish line. And she will say, I spent all day at the lab today. But you know, I just did some yoga. I just did some yoga, so I'm a bit relaxed now and so forth. So all of these considerations have to go into the equation. You're not a robot, you know, so you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself in all of this. Mental health and well-being are critical considerations as you are seeking to advance yourselves. Time management is critical, again, as I mentioned. You know, I've come to wrap my mind around this one here, priority. Because I have a lot of things to do. I remember reading Colin Powell's autobiography. I'll be finished in a few, right? And he said that his boss at the time when he worked at the Pentagon was Carl Lucci. And each morning, Carl Lucci came into the office. And Carl Lucci would go to his desk, and he would sit there. And he would just sit there for several minutes. He didn't jump in and start take up this memo and take up this memo and take up this. He sat there and he focused his mind and made a determination as to what things he was going to touch first. And I say that to say that I've come to appreciate this little adage that prioritization is better than efficiency. Because you can be super efficient at the non-important things. But if you prioritize, then it's a better approach to things. So prioritization. So prioritization is a critical consideration in all the various things that we have to do. And then there's the matter of personal growth, continuing education and professional development. You have not arrived when you have finished the PhD. You're just starting the journey now to build your career. That's basically what it is. And the things that I'm telling you now, lucky you, nobody told me them. Nobody told me any of this. So you have the opportunity now where you are, if a reset is necessary, or for you to really get going, then at least you have some thoughts. That's what I said at the onset. To animate your mind around these kind of considerations as you build your career. Balance your career and your personal lives. You know what has been said about T.P. Lecky? They said that when T.P. Lecky died, and they went to Bodel's research station and was clearing out his personal effects, they found envelopes on top of envelopes of uncashed salary checks. Never cash him salary checks, them just left them on a work panko. So we need a balance between work and personal and those things. Now, I wanted to end here because this morning I coined this word, careericide. You can commit careericide by lack of research, ethics, and integrity. Your career can die. You notice what happened with the president of, was it Yale or Harvard? Harvard, yes, with that plagiarism story there. Professor, her name escapes me. I did a presentation on her, because I used that as a teachable case. And one of the presentations that the SJSRE did on plagiarism surrounded her case. Right, so the scientific enterprise is scaffolded on trust and honesty. And, persons have to be able to trust the research. So the integrity, research integrity and so forth, if you don't have that lock, as we say, your career can be dead and suffer irreparable harm, basically, and so forth. And I want you to find this document I have here. The Singapore Statement on Research Integrity. It came out of their 2020 conference of the Second World Conference on Research Integrity. I think there's 24 statements that they stated in terms of how scientists should be guided as it relates to matters pertaining to integrity and ethics about research, the Singapore Statement. And so that is something that you must consider, because after the first 33 slides that I just presented, if you've gotten everything right coming up to now, and the integrity and the ethics dimension is not right, careericide. About ethics, things to avoid, these kind of things. Mishandling of data, falsification, fabrication, plagiarism, duplicate publication, lying on research grants, thieving research money, all those things. Those things are not going to cut it. My closing thoughts. Every expert was once a novice. So let us appreciate that. So get started from where you're at. Research and scholarship are central to the academic enterprise. It's called the academic lifestyle. As a matter of fact, it's research that sets a university apart from other kinds of educational institutions. That research thingy is the distinguishing factor. One's career is an asset. I'm reiterating this particular point. Your career is actually an asset. Must be deliberately, proactively, and systematically managed to ensure optimal and satisfying career outcomes. And now then, leaving a legacy is one of the immortality narratives. What will survive you after our inevitable demise? 6'6", or we're in an urn, or some other such thing. Reincarnation is one of the immortality narratives. Everlasting life is one of the other immortality narratives. And legacy is another one. What do you leave behind? What difference do you want to make? And it's research and the research activities and outputs presents an opportunity to leave a legacy for the advancement of mankind and for future generations to benefit. And if you look at your career in that way, then it also gives you the motivation to do good and to do right and to make a dent in the universe. The universe is so vast that you really can't change it on its axis. You can put a little dent on it. I suppose that's why people put their names in restrooms and all those type of things. And of course, dogs mark their territories. References, I've cited some references here, and the one that I've highlighted is the one that I want you to go and get, if Dr. Main hasn't shared it with you already. Johnson, 2011, a guide for early career researchers. It says early career, but it's a guide for anybody at whatever stage of their career in terms of the insights and thoughts that you can get to exercise your minds. So I thank you for your quiet patience and tolerance with me as I navigated these slides. And if you have questions or comments, I put congratulations in here, but I was so modest that I took it out back to say that. So thank you very much, and here endeth my presentation. Thank you very much. If you have questions, I will attempt.
Questions? There we go.
Yes.
Dr. Ivy, well presented, sir. I have two quick
Thank you. Yes.
One, will the call for sufficiency just be extended?
It depends.
All right.
Okay, let me tell you why, so that everybody hears. We tend to have, for a particular issue, at least 10 papers. If we have at least 10 papers, we're going to be moving along. Mm-hmm. If not, we might wait a little bit.
Support me to that question is, do you have 10 papers now?
Very close.
Okay.
Very close, very close. Upwards of 5. So we passed the halfway mark.
All right.
Yes.
I don't think this is working, but I think you can hear me.
Yes.
My other question has to do with the aspect of peer reviewing. So I liked the fact that you mentioned peer reviewing, and in looking back, I never really self-assessed before I started my researching, and I certainly didn't set goals, because when I came in, it was about research or publish or perish. So we were just researching without really setting that kind of goal. So they can hear me? All right. So the question that I wanted to ask has to do with the peer review process. Yes. I have been asked to peer review in a number of journals. Yes. What is the weight, when you think about your career, your research career, what kind of weighting does peer reviewing carry?
It earns you points. It earns you points. Let's put it that way. Ordinance 9916 is the ordinance that treats with promotion, appointment, and everything here at our institution. Schedule 1, that the bean counting occurs. How points are counted up so that you meet the thresholds for the different areas. A reviewer is among the criteria listed there for which points can be earned. And it's also... Yes, so I was saying that Ordinance 9916 sets out the parameters for promotions and appointments here at our institution, and Schedule 1 as a table with the different things for which persons get points. And being a peer reviewer is one of those things for which points can be earned. And it's a good thing as part of your professional profile on your CV. You're applying for a job someplace or promotion or other such thing. The inclusion of having been a peer reviewer is part of the academic enterprise, and it shows that a lack of selfishness. It means that you are not just interested in your own papers published, but you're also contributing to science by being a reviewer yourself.
Thank you, sir.
You are welcome. Prof. Barrett? I hope it's a comment.
So it sounds like I'm on a mic. Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Ivy, for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
There are 2 points that I think it's 2, but one was your pathways to research impact.
Yes.
And I thought, I said, but there is something, it's not yours, eh? You said it was from the UK.
Research Council's UK.
Right, so I would want to help them to add
the
practice. Because, for example, there was nothing that spoke to, when you do research on methodologies for different ways of improving your practice as an educator or such. What's the output? We were trying here to put it in something. Yes. But when you defined the parts, it didn't fit in it. Okay. So we'd love to add that as a research output, improving practice. And that has to be critical, especially from the education perspective, because a number of the things we do, especially those involved in action research, is around improving practice. So I'd love to add that.
Yes, before you go to the next one, I think that's a valid consideration, deriving as it does from the scholarship of teaching. And when academicians as educators look at praxis, and they look at different pedagogical theories and their application and all of that and so forth, whether it's behaviorism, constructivism, or whatever and so forth, and then it informs practice, as you're saying. So you see, that's the nature of science. And that's why we tend not as scientists to be dogmatic, because we are never there yet. There's always the possibility of improving and adding to. So yes, I will take that on board and look at the literature further on it. Because in addition to Boyer's 4 domains or 5 domains that were put there was also added recently the scholarship of engagement, talking about how you reach into community spaces and exert impacts and so forth. So definitely the extension to include the scholarship of practice output of practice as one of the pathways for impact is definitely a valid consideration.
Thank you. And the second point is, when you were talking about you had a case. Your case, I'm going to call it a case. You say you didn't want to call the name.
Yes.
But the point I wrote here is research path impacted by academic management.
Yes.
And so it is something that we really have to think about. And like in our university, as with others, when I was doing the masters that we did similarly,
yes.
The professors then would say, boy, we only give 2 years to the management, the academic management as program lead, program
yes.
director, or at most 2 terms,
yes.
because it was just so impacting on their research output and
yes.
interfering with their bid for promotion. But I was just reflecting on it when you spoke about it, because
yes.
when you used your case, I had a case in my mind.
Yes.
And so I wondered if it's a decision that we have to make. Academic management is critical to run a university, but the individual has to understand their path.
Yes.
And I think that is important, because
yes.
I have indeed, you really have to be very strategic to carry management and research.
Yes, yes.
But
yes.
I want to say, having been in both field and more, you think academic management impact research? I think that's something named teaching. Teaching and marking papers is and doing academic management
yes.
while researching is a cruel thing. These days I keep saying to myself, why I have so many meetings, I have so many things, but yet my mind feels at ease. And every time I check it, it has one thing absent. I'm not teaching as much. That's the only thing that's absent. I'm still supervising students. I'm doing academic management and I'm researching. But put teaching in it. So in universities, we also have to look at that teaching research balance. There seems to be an issue there.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. One of the things that I'm hopeful for is that the research groups will also help the academic managers. That the research groups will help the academic managers, because it is like the staff version of a professor having X number of graduate students. What you now have is a set of colleagues with whom you're actually working. So the individual load of the total load is lighter for each in that scenario. It should also be the case that, and this is why I lament about this particular scenario, where despite everything, the staff member supervises a graduate student to completion and leaves it there. And I'm saying, if you go the next step to guide the student to the publication, voila, you have a publication right there. So they leave the work 90% of the way and don't go the other 10%. And then they would have suffered to come to that 90% pathway. I was talking to some colleagues. I was at a conference in Antigua, and 2 colleagues from the Eastern Caribbean were there, and they were eating up the dessert, gobbling up the dessert. And they said, you know, somebody said that I put on weight, but I don't business. It's not like it was a painful process. So having suffered the 90% of the pain to take the student to completion, you don't now go the next 10% and get the publication. So don't do that. Don't do that. Take the prize, claim the prize. It's Dr. Anderson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ivy. And it's funny, my comment, I had my hand up before you just spoke, but it actually fits in nicely with what you were saying because, you know, sitting here listening to you, I am an early career researcher, just having finished a PhD last year. Yes. And I remember when I finished, you know, my supervisor was like, all right, Kamla, you know, let's get into publication. And I remember that I just had this disdain for my thesis. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And it took me a good 6 months before I could even look back on it. And it was, and writing the paper, because I gave her a commitment. I said, all right, I'll get it done by the first quarter of this year, 2024. And she said, okay. And I did. You know, and we sat down, and she was very instrumental in helping me with that. And so now we have submitted. And a friend of mine who finished at the same time as I did, she said, boy, Kamla, you forgot to help me, you know, because you just burnt out. So I think, as you mentioned about having those over 200 dissertations and only 10 articles, you know, coming from it, I think there has to be kind of a focused approach from both a student and a supervisor, because there is a certain amount of burnout that you face. You mentioned 3 years for the PhD. Mine took 6. So when you have been invested in something for 6 years or 7 years or 5 or 10 years, and you finally finish and you have obtained the prize, to think about going back into it now, it's just like, it's very hard. So I'm saying that there has to be some guidance now to help the person. Because even as I was writing the article, I said to my supervisor, boy, I feel like the article harder than the thesis. Because you have a body of work already. But to summarize and even with the limit of 6,000 words, I had to say to my supervisor, yeah, there's a limit of 6,000. Because she kept wanting to add and read new literature. And I'm like, oh my Lord, this is really hard. So yes, you have done a tremendous amount of work to get the thesis. But to then do the article now, that requires a different set of skills, right? And requires a focus from your supervisor who's willing to work alongside you, yes. Right? So are supervisors willing to do that? You know, are the students willing to do the work? So what I'm saying is that to get to that next phase requires some, you know, whether training, discipline, you know, presentation, something to help people to recognize that, yes, you have accomplished this and this is great, but how do you even the idea of when people saying, oh, you can get 2 or 3 articles out of your thesis, how do you do that? You know, just helping persons, I think that kind of guidance, I think could be critical, because you can't just assume that it's automatically going to come. Right? It's not going to come automatically. It's going to be something that takes focus and dedication and even guidance from supervisors who are willing to guide the students, and students now who are willing to say, okay, this is how you take your work and pull articles from it. You can use your research questions, you can use your objectives or whatever, but I think that sort of coaching, I think, is critical to get that sort of output.
Yes, thank you for sharing your own experience as well. Well, I'm reminded of something that I should have mentioned, that we're in the era of the Data Protection Act, so research integrity and that aspect comes into it. And why I say that segue and use that example is that part of what Mr. Lawrence, Andre Lawrence, the data protection officer, one of the presentations that he made, and it's one of the commentaries in JAST, is that one designs into the process the protection that is needed for the data management and so forth. And I'm saying that to say that the graduate education regime should be such that it includes this training of students along the way and not as an add-on when they are finished. So it is a process that needs to be reformed to an extent. And so for example, the graduate students, I gather some are online, they should be making conference presentations along the way to the end point of their process so they get an understanding of how do you put a PowerPoint together to be finished in 20 minutes or 10 minutes of a presentation, your learning summaries. But more to the point, there are institutions that no PhDs can graduate without having published first. And that's how it's built into the training, so that it is appreciated that this is not an add-on to the back end of the process, but it is integral to the training process, because if you're going to have the totality of training of a scientist, the publication as part of it must be embodied in it. It shouldn't be an extra dimension to it. So I think as we design as we design education programs at the advanced level, and the experiences that students get, everything cannot be in the curriculum. So the seminars and those workshops and other things that students have, those are the enrichment things that will go with graduate education to build these skills in. Thank you very much. Thank you again, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ivy. Please stay with me for a minute. So Dr. Ivy would have spoken about the whole idea of research being a systematic approach, and that given its centrality to academic life, we have to be deliberate and proactive in our efforts to manage our lives as in academia. And I'm grateful, sir, that you highlighted, Dr. Main is going to go over to that side and look pretty with you in the frame. I am grateful that you highlighted the role of self-assessment and goal setting, because these are indeed important activities for early and mid-career professionals. The whole idea that we have to align our goals with our personal values and our professional aspirations. These are important recommendations. Also, I think what's critical for us to take away is the need for us to continuously upskill and to seek out mentorship. It doesn't always come to us. So sometimes we have to think about what it is we want and then try to identify opportunities for mentorship, collaboration, and engagement. So I just want to thank you for a really strong, solid, and useful presentation at a time like this. And then I'll give the mic now to Dr. Main for her to do all of this portion of the event.
Boy, I thought I was just going to hand over this gift. Thank you, Dr. Williams Shakespeare. You really gave a good thank you to Dr. Ivy, but I would have to say thank you for an excellent presentation. Every time I listen to you, I'm in awe of what you're saying, and I really appreciate that you have taken the time to come and talk to us and present to us. I'm sure that we can all learn from this and situate what you have taught us today in our practice. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome, and remember it is you who got me into this. Thank you very much. I suppose it is fitting.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure being here, colleagues.
Thank you, Dr. Ivy, and thank you, Dr. May. Now, colleagues, we are at break time. Forgive us for the 2-minute or 3 minutes overstep. When you go outside to be refreshed, please stop by the faculty booth. If you're visiting with us, take a look at our graduate programs. Take a look at what we have on offer. Visit our wall of fame. See what the faculty members in education and liberal studies are currently researching, and there is an avenue for you to identify mentors, possible collaboration opportunities. I want to thank my tech team for the support. I want to thank the viewers who are on YouTube. Our sponsors, Yummy, they are outside. Please stop by their booth and get a little refreshment there. I want to thank our decor team, tech team, and we just want to encourage you to make use of the sessions and to take away as much as you can from them. So this part of the proceeding now comes to a close. Please proceed into our break time, and then we'll pick up with the concurrent sessions at 12. right? And we will be in 47 A5, 6, and 7, and lunch will today again be in 8. All right? Thank you.